Good evening, everyone, and welcome. And Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all. May your New Year be happy, to another edition of Friday with Friends. And today's friend, thank you to Zoom, we can reach across the Caribbean to Barbados, to Garfield King. Hi, Garfield.
Hi, Craig. It's good to be here. If I may mention that I actually in Trinidad is where I'm located.
I did not know that, but I was right in assuming you're originally from Barbados?
From Trinidad.
You're from Trinidad.
Yes.
So yes.
But I spent a number of years in Barbados. Because I left Trinidad when I was about 4 years old and went to live in England.
I see.
For about 25, 26, 27 years. So I'm very much a sort of a Caribbean person. So as the young people say, whatever. Yes.
Yeah, whatever. So the title that we came up with for today's session is Listening, semicolon, the essence of connection.
Mm-hmm.
So when you hear that, well, first of all, before I even get your answer, let me share a little bit of your bio with everyone, is that you've had a career in the communication fields. I guess you've been in the radio stations most of your adult life.
Yep, that's right. Over 40 years, yep.
And what could be more communication than radio? And I guess communication is the process that we learn to connect. We're trying to connect. So you're well versed in this area of communication and connection by virtue of a career. So it's perfect. You're the perfect person to speak with on this subject that I really enjoy a lot. And that's finding what value has listening in the connection and the communication process. When you hear that sentence, what goes through your mind?
What goes through my mind is, it's like a light bulb, if you like, that goes off, because one of the things that is very significant or very important to me is the awareness of what communication is. And people that have spoken to me before often tired of me saying this. So I'll try not to say it too often during this conversation, is that communication in its real sense is simply an exchange of energy. Like everything else in creation, it's all about energy. And when we're really communicating, we're simply exchanging energy, one person to another, perhaps, and then it multiplies. And in fact, sometimes when we are not thinking about communicating, we're still exchanging that energy. So communication is still going on. And one of the things about listening, when I hear the word listening, or when I listen to the word listening, is that it really strikes a chord, because it's so integral to the communication process. And when I say communication, I'm speaking about the connection, okay? Because it's almost impossible to have an effective connection with somebody if you haven't taken the time to listen to them. And again, because we're talking about energy, when we say listen to them, it also means that you are, as we used to say back in my youth, feel the vibes, man, in the sense of really getting to what the person is trying to get across. And that means listening and hearing what is not being said. Because many times people are not articulate in the way that they bring across their ideas. And articulation doesn't have anything to do with intelligence. It's often about knowing yourself, knowing what it is you really want to say. And if you tune in, if you listen deeply with respect and compassion to another person, you start to pick up the feeling, the vibes, the essence of what they're saying before they actually say it. And it may sound a little cheesy, but some people feel that the ability to say, okay, well, you're reading my mind, stop it. And it's not that. It's simply that if you can enter a level of silence, a level of quiet, there's the ability to perceive what is not being said. That, in my mind, is the beginning of deep listening. Does that make sense?
It does, exactly. And in fact, you've already touched on a couple other questions I had. Listening, of course, you said it's compassion and empathy automatically come with it. And in reading your bio, I like this sentence of helping people find their voice. And that's exactly what you just described to me, is that especially the inarticulation has nothing to do with intelligence. It has to do with able to express the self in a way that can be effective to the most people. And someone who is maybe what I call an avid listener or a sincere listener is helping to bring that out, because part of this lack of articulation could be just the anxiety with the fear of not being heard based upon whatever someone's life experience are. So it's a service. I just seen what a service it is just to listen.
Yeah, if you think about it, we are so unaccustomed to being listened to that those of us who can afford it pay individuals a great deal of money.
Well, that is so true. I had a friend of mine from years ago came into a large amount of money in his life. And the first thing he wanted to do was find the most expensive psychiatrist that he could find. And he said, I have no intention of changing, but if I want someone to listen to me, I want the best. So, and it was just that no one listened. And I've had, I do teaching, and I had a student say to me once is that it's just, you took the time to listen. Mm-hmm. And so even teaching, you think it's more of a proactive thing that you're doing the speaking, but it's not necessarily so. It's this perfect harmony of give and take between individuals that create a connection, a union, or what we call yoga.
Yeah, I often see it almost as a dance, because the therapist, the psychologist, Abraham Schmidt said, listening is more than a skill, it's an art. And when we really listen to somebody, it's almost like we're engaged in the healing process. Yeah. And because we're talking about exchanging energy, the dynamics of that are very fluid. And when you allow yourself time to listen, really listen to someone, as you said, Craig, what you're doing is you're giving them the space. You're creating the space. I mean, I was a musician for many years, and one of the things I learned very early on, I was taught it, but it took me many years to learn it, was that it's not all about the notes. It's often about the spaces in between, because it is those spaces that allow the breathing, that allow us, the listeners of that music, to absorb what is going on.
That's so true.
You'll notice that music that just comes at you in a relentless way. Yes, you might dance to it, you may enjoy it for a period of time, but then it exhausts you because you're not being given the time to absorb it's almost like a sensory overload. So
it's true.
Yeah, so listening to another person, you're giving them literally the space, the time and space to express. And many times, why this thing about healing is really turns me on, if you like, is that when most people know the answers to the questions that they ask, or know how to maneuver out of something. But it's like they need a sounding board. They need somebody that they can put something out there and get a vibe back. And many times, if you practice the art of deep listening, what happens is you allow them the space to speak, to express, to find their voice, so that they see the answer or the solution to what was causing them an issue.
It's so true. You know, you're saying about the music, and I remember listening to this Russian prodigy piano player, pianist, I guess they call it when you're really good. And she said Rachmaninoff is no problem for her because it's just brilliance after brilliance. But Mozart frightens her because of the spaces in between the notes. She didn't know what to do with that spaces because it made her feel uncomfortable in the silence. And so then you see that's the true genius, is finding that balance between sound and silence. And isn't that a conversation between two people? It's a dance of sound and silence between two. And where we change, lead, and follow, ideally. But as if you're going to be on the teacher end of it, of course, you're going to have to listen more.
Yeah. Very, very, very true. Because I mean, what is a teacher really supposed to do? I mean, is a teacher an individual who is there to basically lecture and bombard the student with information, or is the teacher there to facilitate the process of that person's growth? And facilitation is something that only can happen if you allow the individual to blossom, to bloom, to open up within her own self.
Absolutely. And so this brings up another point of how one reaches such an elevated state. I mean, you're describing a state of being that's not easily accessible even to the most prestigious teachers. And I noticed also in reading your bio that it seems that your career and the amount of time that you've been practicing meditation almost are the same. And like over 40 years in both cases. So how has meditation influenced and enhanced your ability to communicate?
A very astute observation, Dr. Craig. Yes, I'll give you a very quick backpedal. I got passionate about radio probably at the age of about 5 or 6 years old, 6, 7 years old, because I'd be listening. So this would have been in the very early 60s, late 50s, early 60s, listening to radio stories, listening to how people could use words and paint pictures in my mind. And that, as a child, that blew me away, because this was before we didn't have television then. And it was amazing that people could do that, the storytelling, the descriptions. And so I had this passion, and I was drawn towards meditation and yoga probably at the age of 16, 17, 18. And after a while, I began to, with the music and the other creative adventures I got involved in, I realized that if I could allow myself, however I perceived myself as self back then, if I could allow myself to step away from what the mechanical parts of what I was doing, and literally allow, well, I didn't know what to call it at the time, but allow energy to flow and try to get out of the way, then what I produced was often much better than when I was trying to force it. And so getting into meditation 45 plus years ago, this was something that was very important to me, because the other thing that has always been important to me is how sound can act as a healing modality. The whole thing of using music and sound to heal mind and even the physical body. So getting involved in meditation brought all of these things together, seeing how it's possible to focus one's energy, focus one's being to a point, and try to harness aspects of that energy. And as it turned out, when I came back to my land of birth, Trinidad, in 1980, I was asked to be involved in a radio program, and I had no real idea what to do, but I'd always had this passion to be involved in radio. And so I said, okay, I would write this and I would present it. And what I was writing was aspects of the teachings of the Brahma Kumaris, Raj Yoga, and trying to make it accessible to the general public. And I began to literally find my voice, because it allowed me, because in presenting each program, I spent a couple of moments in silence before the microphone went on, the light went on to record. And so I tried to deliver this information in a state of mind, which was not just me speaking, but to me listening as well to what I was saying and what I was passing on. And that tuned me in to the reality that it is possible to step back, speak and listen and observe oneself, almost like in a detached way. And this is what began to spur me on more and more in the direction of getting deeper into radio, to broadcasting, radio programs that dealt with motivation, discovering self, and all of these things. It was that awareness of being able to listen and speak at the same time.
So you're the title of the session really describes your experience, is it came through that. Yeah. And I'm thinking of another word that came to me as you were speaking about you weren't sure what to do, but you went ahead, is it takes a great deal of trust to do that. You know, there, and I mean it in this highest sense. There's a trust in the drama, as you would say, or in trust in oneself that you may not know exactly what to do or even what to say, but the experience is safe. You know, you're in a safe, you have to feel safe first. You know, so maybe listening is also creating a safe environment for the other person so that they can find their voice, because there's so many obstacles and disappointments and judgments and everything that keep us from this trust.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, Craig. Fantastic point. The thing about trusting in self, in my case, back then, and I do remember back then, is that a lot of it was to do about my major teacher there, an amazing soul that some of you may know, Daddy Janky.
My teacher too.
And when I was heading out to the Caribbean, because I had the choice of going to I had been to the headquarters in Abu Madhuban a few times, but then I had the choice of whether going one more time or using my limited finances to go to assist in service in the Caribbean. She said something to me which really stuck. She said, you go out there and always remember that you are Baba's ambassador, right? God's ambassador. And for at least a decade, that's what basically carried me, because I figured, okay, well, so if that's the case, what can I not do? You know, so I mean, let me just let me just go and do it. It's going to happen. Later on, I began to realize the thing of faith, and faith in what? everybody has faith in something. It could be faith in negativity, it could be faith in evil, it could be faith in good. But I think that we all, in our own experience, come to understand that there is so much that is greater than ourselves. And if we can find a way of tapping into that, we begin to realize that there is so much more to us than meets the eye. And one of the things that I have to be extremely thankful, I guess my experience in the BK organization is that thing of getting a better handle on getting to know oneself. I can't say that I know myself. I'm still in, it's an ongoing journey. If I live to be 1,000, I don't think I'd ever reach there, but I'm working. But one of the things that happened is that, and again, this is an old saying, is that to really listen to somebody and really listen to, you have to start to listen to yourself. My wife and I do training in public speaking and communication skills, and there's an aspect we call interpersonal communication and intrapersonal communication, because ultimately the most important person you'll ever speak to is yourself. And by coming to get a better sense of who you are, it allows you to open your ears, because you made a point there. There's no fear then, right? You can allow yourself to be, for want of a better word, vulnerable, because you have a better sense of your own skin, of your own self. So you open your ears and allow that listening to ignite. And in that process, you begin to hear the other person. Because you see, if you don't work on self, what happens is what you're hearing may not be the other person. It might be your own prejudices, your own stuff that's going on. So that's why it's all integrated. There's no,
oh, absolutely.
People say, well, just listen, but it's not just listen.
No.
This listening is hard. It's really hard. I don't know, what is your experience of listening, Craig? Do you find it easy or hard?
You're making it very easy to understand. I think it's only hard when I'm having difficulty with my intrapersonal communication, is that because that means I'm not full, and so that margin where I'm not full, that's my need. And when someone meets me in that space, then I can't hear them. I might even have conflict with them because we both are fighting for the same resource.
Yeah.
So it makes me realize how important it is to be full, to continue to be full. And if you're an ambassador, it's not even your responsibility. It's not even your responsibility anymore that you're carrying out. You're an instrument. An ambassador is really an instrument.
Yeah, yeah.
And I find that to be a much easier frame of mind to work from than of trying to create it and be it myself. That I'm just, if it's like I turn on a tap, I'm not the source of water, I'm just the pipe that brings it to the faucet. And I'm happy with that role because I'm happy getting it there.
Yeah.
Because the intended person was getting their thirst quenched. That's the success.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree with that. And it aligns with something that we teach or we facilitate in our sessions, which is to let people realize that you are the message. Now, this may seem to run contrary to what you're saying, but bear with me for a second or two. When we say you are the message, it means that whatever you're speaking about, whether it is a safety pin or how to build a spaceship, the information is passing through you. It is passing through you. Just like you said, it's coming from the source passing. But you see, because if you don't work on yourself, what happens is just like a pipe, if the pipe is corroded, then the water passing through, the person on the other end, what they get is kind of a bit rusty water tasting of copper or whatever else, you know. So if you work on yourself, then you become a better channel for
Oh,
that.
you've made it very clear. I get it totally. Is that you are the message. Even it's not you, it's just that you are presenting it. And so people can judge the source by what they see it's done for you.
Absolutely.
And it's
Absolutely.
something you don't even need words to use.
Right.
You don't
Again,
even
because
need words.
they feel the energy. They feel the energy
And
before you open your mouth.
and that listen, and that, of course, you don't need to say anything. You can listen, and that person is always going to feel that they're going to take the advantage of to get it all out. And then it's such a cathartic. It can be a very cathartic experience for someone to express themselves in a way that they're not used to expressing. And what could be a greater gift to give someone than validating them, validating their presence, their existence.
And every human being, we all seek validation of some sort or another. We all do. And this aspect of the listening is that if you allow yourself to be still, to be quiet, to be in tune, or you work on tuning yourself, you are able to recognize some of those preconditions, the preconceived notions that you have, the prejudices, the way we prejudge people. You can recognize them when they come, because let's face it, we can't, I don't think we should feel that, okay, we're there already. We're not, we're all having this stuff. But if you allow yourself the silence, the stillness, you're able to pick up when these things start coming into your mind. So before they influence the connection that you have with somebody, you can say to them, I see you. Welcome, my friend. But you know what? I don't need you right now.
This is not the time.
Yeah, take a seat back there for now. Take a seat back there for now, because I am busy. And over time, you can develop this ability to move aside those things. And I think everybody has experienced, if you have the choice between somebody who seems to be very knowledgeable, who can speak beautifully, full of wisdom, so-called wisdom and knowledge, and to be in their company, or to be in the company of somebody who just listens and makes you feel that you are the most important person in the world, most people would choose the latter. Because you said it beautifully, Craig, that healing exists when you allow people the time, the space, literally to breathe. That's what listening does. It breathes life into a space. It allows people to be reconnected with themselves. It allows people to find their own space within which they can now see more clearly.
Well, we both know how beautiful it is. And I'm sure we've gone over our time, because it's really, the word is intoxicating. It's intoxicating to touch upon these things for our own healing. You know, I can feel the healing going on inside of me as we speak, as I revalidate myself. And I really, that last point I'd like to make, I love the point that when you see parts of yourself that are maybe not as desirable as others and maybe a little bit unwieldy, you don't even show that violence. Is that you say, I will pay attention to you, but have a seat and I'll be right with you. And this is exactly how to treat everyone, because even the person that's yelling because they're not getting attention as quickly as someone else, they're really saying, please, I'm important. Don't make me, I don't want to feel that I'm not good enough. And so you can reaffirm someone like that without even a word.
Yep.
Without even a word. Okay, that's it. Brother, thank you. It was wonderful. So what we do here is we normally do a little meditation, and I'll just go right into it. And let's go from the external and make that switch to the internal by the only means that we really have as physical beings is through breath. That just a couple breaths just to connect, to reconnect to the internal a little bit more. And just with each exhale, I can just viscerally experience the unnecessary just exiting out. With each inhale, there's a little inspiration, and that's a beautiful word, inspiration. And while I'm maybe holding the breath in between, I have the consciousness of absorbing the energy of that breath. And I let go of that, and I feel a little bit clearer. I'll do one more. And again, I feel myself absorbing the energy of that breath, changing the molecules inside my brain and giving them the oxygen that they need. And I let go of anything I don't need on an exhale. And the first experience I have is gratitude. Is gratitude to have such a life where I get an experience like this is more than I had even really hoped for. That I can learn and I'm of value. And I don't have to have a strategy and plan other than that of doing the best that I can do. And then letting go of any type of desire for results and trusting. This makes me feel more full. How strange it is to empty yourself and feel more full. But this is the way it is. And in that fullness, I feel less and less need for me. And my natural result is I want others to also experience what I'm experiencing. So sharing is just a result of fullness. I have a little overflow. And instead of letting it just drip wasted, let me share that with others. And it takes the form of listening. I'm just listening. I have no idea of how easy it might be for someone to have a transformation just by the act of being heard. And with that, I give thanks. Om Shanti. Brother, it's not a job, it's not a task, it's a joy.
Thank you for the opportunity. I truly appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I know you do. I feel the same about you. We'll meet again, and we'll see how that takes shape. But I feel it coming.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Yes. Happy New Year, everyone.